Today, we're looking at a case that shook Rochester, New York. A killer who seemed to have a twisted obsession with patterns. 3 young girls, all brutally murdered. Their first and last names eerily sharing the same initials. Was it coincidence or the mark of a calculating predator? Hey, friends. You're listening to Cold-Blooded Serial, a true crime podcast, and I am your host and true crime bestie, Tika. Let's dive in to the unsolved yet chilling story of the double initial killer. Between 1971 and 1973, 3 young girls were abducted. They were all sexually assaulted, strangled, and their bodies were dumped in surrounding rural areas. And friends, get this. Each victim had the same first and last initial and were found in towns starting with the same letter. Victim number 1 was 10-year-old Carmen Colon, found in Chile. The second victim was 11-year-old Wanda Wachowski, found in Webster. The third victim was 11-year-old Michelle Mensah, found in Macedon. Carmen, Wanda, and Michelle had more in common than their age, gender, having double initials, and being victims of a psychopath. All 3 of them attended a Catholic school. All 3 of them came from financially struggling families with absent or deceased fathers. And all 3 were blocks away from their homes when they disappeared. Okay, friends, let's talk about these innocent victims. Victim number 1 was Carmen Colon, a 10-year-old Puerto Rican girl who spoke little English. She lived with her grandparents in Rochester, New York. At 4 p.m. on November 16, 1971, she walked 2 blocks to a pharmacy to pick up a prescription for her grandfather. While waiting for the prescription, she left the drugstore and never returned. She was seen by witnesses entering a parked car near the pharmacy and was reported missing later that night by her family. Carmen was spotted one last time about an hour later by almost 100 motorists driving on Interstate 490. They saw Carmen about 12 miles away from her neighborhood. Witnesses say that she was nude, waving her arms and running away from a dark-colored Ford Pinto hatchback that was backing up on the shoulder of the road. The poor girl, 10 years old, was waving her arms, shouting and pleading for any of the passing cars to stop. And no one stopped for her. Listen, the same way that Ford was backing up, they could have done the same thing. They could have saved Carmen. But no one did. And honestly, I don't know if anyone got home and called the police, but by the time they did that, I'm 99% sure that the car was gone, and so was she. 2 days later, 2 teenage boys on bicycles near the village of Churchville, Chile, which is about 35 miles southwest of Rochester, found her lifeless, naked body in a ditch. And at first, they thought it was a broken doll, but quickly realized it was a girl. When you hear about the city of Rochester, New York, there are so many small villages outside of it that everyone just says, oh yeah, I'm from Rochester. It's only the people within Rochester who actually knows these little towns or villages. So, Carmen's coat was found in a culvert. It's like a little tunnel under the bridge where you see the water going through. So if you think about a movie, usually kids in the 80s will be playing in that dirty brown water. And it's a big round type of tunnel that always has a stream of dirty water going through. So that's what a culvert is. Her coat was found in this culvert, which was 300 feet from her body. But her pants were found almost 2 weeks later, close to a service road where she was last seen attempting to escape her kidnapper. So I'm guessing by Interstate 490. The autopsy results revealed that she was sexually assaulted and strangled by hand. Months passed, and the police still had no leads. They even put up a billboard sign around the Rochester area begging for information about Carmen's death and promised a $6,000 reward. But still, the horrific crime went unsolved. For over a year, police searched for 10-year-old Carmen Colon's killer. And then, in the midst of their investigation, the murder of a second girl near the same age occurred. Wanda Walkowitz, the second victim, was 11 years old at the time of her death. She often helped her mom with tasks like purchasing groceries for dinner, since her father died of a heart attack years earlier. On April 2nd, 1973, 11-year-old Wanda Walkowitz walked to the grocery store by herself on the east side of Rochester at around 5 p.m. Wanda bought some groceries and started to walk north on Conkey Avenue. A witness spotted her near the market about an hour later, holding her groceries and hesitating at the door of a brown car, the same color car that witnesses saw in the Carmen Colon abduction. The next day, at 10:15 a.m., so now it's April 3rd, 1973, a New York State police trooper found her fully clothed dead body at the bottom of a hillside at a rest area off State Route 104 in Webster, about 15 miles northeast of her home. Autopsy results showed she was strangled by a belt or similar ligature, sexually assaulted, and chillingly, she was fed before she was murdered. The police think that the killer offered her a hamburger because those were the remains that was found in her stomach. So they think because, she was low income and maybe hungry, he offered her probably like a Happy Meal or something and was like, hey, come on in the car, eat this food and then I'll bring you home. And of course, he fed her, but that was it. After that, he tortured her and killed her. The way her body was positioned seemed to indicate that she was likely thrown from a moving vehicle, her small body rolling down the dirty embankment to its final resting place. About 6 months after Wanda went missing, on November 28, 1973, 11-year-old Michelle Menza went to her school nurse's office in tears. The school told reporters that Michelle and her younger sister were tormented by their classmates because they obviously were not required to bathe regularly and their clothing was ragged and dirty. The nurse let her leave school, and she was last seen about a fifth of a mile from campus by classmates. Police received a tip that a girl who looked like Michelle was spotted at a hamburger stand in a man's car. The witness said that the man had dirty hands and returned to the car carrying a bag and a cup. Witnesses later saw a similar-looking man driving a car with a flat tire, as well as a girl matching Michelle's description in the back seat. 2 days later, Michelle Menza's lifeless, clothed body was in a ditch in plain sight in Macedon, about 20 miles northeast of Rochester. She had been strangled with a ligature, and the autopsy revealed she had eaten a burger at some point before her death. Police suspected that all three of the girls willingly got into the car with their abductor. This led to suspicions that the killer was likely someone who appeared to be in position of authority, such as a police officer or a fireman, or perhaps was someone posing in those roles. The police captain at the time, Andrew Spiracino, said that he believed the lure dangled before the children may have been the offer of a hamburger and a soft drink. The outlying towns where the bodies were found also match their initials. Carmen Colon, found in Churchville, Chili. Wanda Walkowitz, found in Webster. And Michelle Menza, found in Macedon. Police from multiple jurisdictions regularly revisited the slayings to discuss possible leads as they continued to investigate. The DNA that was found on 2 of the victims were destroyed before modern genetic technology, but the DNA found on Wanda Walkowitz still exists and is still being re-examined. Over the past 50 years, no investigation has led to a suspect. At one point, police believed Carmen had a separate killer from the other two girls because she was strangled with bare hands and she was half naked when found. The main suspect at the time for Carmen's murder was her uncle, Miguel Colon. But after a domestic dispute, he committed suicide by gunshot in front of the police. And now they think it is unlikely that he would have been the murderer. Then the police began looking at firefighter Dennis Termini, who committed over a dozen sexual assaults in his garage. But when he was confronted by the police, Dennis Termini shot himself in the head. Then we have the infamous hillside strangler, Kenneth Bianchi, who terrorized Los Angeles between 1977 and 1979. He became a suspect because he was a former ice cream vendor born and raised in Rochester, New York. He moved to LA and was convicted of a series of sexual assaults and strangulations, dumping his victims' bodies on hillsides throughout LA. However, former FBI profiler Roy Hazelwood shared that a palm print found on Michelle's body didn't match Kenneth Bianchi's. Their last suspect was Joseph Naso, another double initial killer from Rochester. He was convicted of 4 brutal murders of Northern California sex workers between the 1970s and 1990s. All of the women had matching initials. Eerily, one of his victims had the same name as 10-year-old Carmen Colon. However, the DNA evidence from the Rochester killings did not match Joseph Naso's. Friends, 2023 marked the 50th anniversary of these horrific murders, and still, the police and investigators refuse to lose hope. Since this case is still unsolved, they're asking if anyone has any information to please call the New York State Police at area code 585-398-4100. Or email any information you may have to NYSV like Victor, I-C-A-P, P like Paul, at troopers, with the S at the end, troopers, plural, .ny.gov. And friends, this is the end. Like I said, this case is still unsolved, which is so scary and so sad because none of their family received any closure, knowing that the predator was behind bars. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cold-Blooded Serial. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps. Stay safe. Until next time. Bye.